everybody. I am Hannah with the Scott County Public Library here in Georgetown, Kentucky, and today I'm here with my sister-in-law, Erin, who is a very skilled home baker, and she is going to be showing us how to decorate some Christmas cookies. So this is one example of a cookie that we are going to do today. Super cute little reindeer. And Erin, just help me with this. Is this a royal icing cookie?
It is a royal icing, yes.
Royal icing.
It is made with meringue powder instead of egg whites, though.
Oh, all right.
Easier to make.
So hang out with us here for a few minutes, and Erin is going to go through the steps and show you exactly what you need to do. So we have our cute little reindeer. We're going to do a gift box, and we will also be doing a cute little stocking. So, all right, here we go.
Okay, so we're going to start with your favorite cutout sugar cookie recipe. I like one that is a no-chill. You just cut it out and go from there. You can even do the store-bought mixes, anything, whatever you typically do for your Christmas cookies. And we are going to do a stocking shape. And then we have the gingerbread, but we're actually going to flip it and do a reindeer head. And then we have just a basic square, and you can cut these out. If you don't have a square cookie cutter, you can cut it out with a knife or whatever you want to do, whatever shape box you want to do. And then we're going to start out with a royal icing. This particular recipe, you're going to mix it until there's stiff peaks. It's pretty thick. Your mixer is going to start making some weird noises. That's totally normal. And there's a bunch of different recipes. My recipe is actually made with meringue powder, which is a lot easier to work with. Egg whites can be a little temperamental. The meringue powder is not that way at all. You just mix it and go. So it's pretty foolproof. I've already separated into colors. This is the outline icing, and it's still pretty thick. So I'm just going to put this. It's still pretty thick. It'll hold its shape. That's what you want it to do for the outline. And I'll show you how to make the filler icing in a second. So you just color it the way you want it. And then I put mine into a piping bag and have it ready to go. So I'm going to take my first shape and one thing that I do is you don't want to have it right up on the cookie. You get a better, you can get straighter lines if you hold it up a bit and let the icing fall. I try to usually do it in one motion. Obviously you don't need to, but you do touch it to the tip if you have to start over. And then I have, it's actually a fondant tool that I use for my cakes, but you can also use it for the cookies. I use the sharp end, and you can get rid of your little peaks that come up when you end and start. Then I'm going to take the icing that I had in my bowl, and it starts out pretty thick, like I showed you before. And we're going to have to add water to this to make it the right consistency to fill the colors. So to do this, instead of using a cup of water, you use a spray bottle. This is the one I use for my cakes. This is the one I use for my cookies. I don't clean anything with it, I promise. And you spray it. I usually start with 3 and mix. You want to make it the consistency of shampoo. That's a good consistency. People know what shampoo looks like when you pour it out of the bottle. This is still pretty thick. You start with a toothpaste. That's what I tell my kids. You start with a toothpaste and you go to a shampoo. So this is still holding its shape pretty good, and we want it to be able to fill. So this is still a little too thick. If you pour water in, you can do it that way, but a lot of times I overdo it. If I do it that way, spraying lets you control the amount of water you're putting in a little bit better. Okay, so this needs just a tad more water. We want it to fall on itself and disappear. And this is not doing that. There we go. So it kind of does, you don't see the lines after a couple seconds. That's what you want, because that's what you want your icing to do once you put it in your shape. Okay. The easiest way to put it in there is to put it in a piping bag without a tip. I leave it on there, and then after I fill the bag, I'll cut the tip very small. That way I can get all the small spaces if I have one. On this particular cookie, you don't have small spaces. It's super easy to fill. You can use a spoon if you don't have piping bags, or even a Ziploc bag, and cut the corner off, and it'll do the job. I usually do all my red all at once for my outline. You got to work quickly though, because you don't want this to fully dry before you fill it. It gives a smoother line, and your lines tend to disappear a little better if you work while it's still wet. So we're using red on all of our cookies today. So I'm going to go ahead and outline them all. Then I just smooth that line out with the tip of this. You can use a toothpick if you don't have one of these tools. A lot of people probably don't have these laying around their kitchens, and that's totally fine. Before I had this set, I used toothpicks. And they do just as well. They have the pointy end, and we'll do the same thing. You just drag it till it disappears. And you can fix that a little bit with the tip while you're filling as well. If you have a little bit of a gap or air bubble in your icing, you can always fill that in. So don't panic. All right, now you're gonna take your fill icing, and I like to put my piping bag in a cup. I will put it in the cup, and I will fold the sides down. This is somewhat thin, so I try to move it all to the bottom before I cut it, and once I cut it, I will try to move fast, because it comes out pretty liberally once you snip the end. Alright, so I'm going to start with the square, and you don't have to do this in any kind of special order. You just want enough icing that you can work with. And then you're going to take your toothpick or your tool. You bring it to the edges and fill in all your gaps. Some people do this a little bit thinner than I do. I like to have a little bit of control over it, so I keep it a little bit thicker. You can add a little more water and it will run and fill it on its own. I just like having the ability to move it around if I need to. It's really a preference. I don't have to worry about it running and filling up in spaces where I don't want it sometimes. especially if I'm working in small areas. This can be time consuming, but it's worth it. So that will dry solid, and you'll have to let that dry for actually a couple of hours is best. Usually 2-3 hours is before you do the decorations is what I like to do. Sometimes if I'm working under a time crunch, I will speed that process up. I don't recommend that because bad things can happen. Your icing might collapse underneath it, or if you hit it with your finger or something like that, it's not easy to fix. Grinch is trying to steal our cookies before they're ready to go. Use my white tip just to give it a little bit of texture. You don't have to do that. You can leave them smooth. I just like to add a little bit of something to most of my cookies. We've got our gift, and sometimes your lines won't end up straight, and that's okay. But to make them, to make better straight lines, don't worry about getting too close to the cookie. Just hold it up and let it fall. I feel like the harder I try to make straight lines, the worse it gets. If I'm doing a set of cookies that needs to be an exact replica, I will usually plan ahead, and I'll have one cookie that has it spaced out and all of that. If I'm just making them for my family to eat or whatever, then we just have fun with it. So if you're just having fun with your kids for Christmas cookies, I wouldn't make sure all your lines are perfectly straight and all of that. It's not really important, and kids really don't care. I'm going to make my bow, and then I'm going to fill it in with the hard icing. You can fill it in with the filler icing, but if you want a little bit of texture to it, then you can do it with this one. And then I'll go back in. And if you want to add dots, you can do this while your icing is a little wet, and they will kind of sink down into the icing a little bit. It's a little bit tricky, and it's totally okay if they're raised. It doesn't look bad. It gives your cookie a little bit of texture. And there we have a present. Not perfect by any means, but it doesn't have to be. Cookies are supposed to be fun. Now this guy is a little bit wet, and I want to add some goofy little eyeballs. Now you can pipe these on. Getting perfect circles sometimes is a little bit of a challenge. So I buy these pre-made ones. They come in different sizes. These were from Walmart. Other craft stores carry them. And I usually have my tweezers to put these on, but we're just going to drop them in place. Whoop, and hope for the best. He's supposed to be a reindeer, silly reindeer. Don't take it too seriously. And I'll sink down into his face a little bit, and they'll stay once it's dry. Then I'm going to take my black detail icing. And again, not too set on how these are going to go, so we just
So Erin, what just happened there?
So I forgot to put the coupler together and push the tip right off.
All right, so you guys will notice that Erin is currently working on the reindeer. But what I want you guys to see is that the actual shape is a gingerbread man, and she flipped him over. So that's where we are currently at.
And there's our reindeer. Okay, so here we have our finished cookies. These still need some drying time, and before packaging them up, I would give them at least 4 hours after the final details. So like this one we just finished, it's not going to be ready to package up, put in a Ziploc bag or some kind of Tupperware container with something with a lid. I wouldn't do that for at least 4 hours. And then you can stack them, you can package them. The Grinch will eat them. Have fun with it. Sometimes you can get a little bit discouraged because it does take a few times to figure it out, especially the filler icings and the outline icings. Just work with it a little bit. Remember the toothpaste for the outline and shampoo for the fillers. It's an easy way to remember it. Add a little bit of water at a time. You can always add more. You can't take it out. And be creative. Think about how you can change your cookie cutters from gingerbread men to a reindeer. Just because you have one set shape doesn't mean you can't make it into something else.